So for today's exercise, we're going to place our hands on our pelvis so that we're in a triangle position from fingertip to thumb. Your fingers are going to go towards your pubic bone and your thumbs are going to be by your belly button and the palms are just on the side. So I want you to imagine that I have superimposed a clock right on top of your pelvis and your belly, your thumbs being 12 o'clock and your fingertips being 6 o'clock right by your pubic bone, and the sides of your pelvis being under your palms. When we flatten our back and our ribs, the pubic bone starts to come up and the thumbs go down. Most importantly, I just want you to feel that change of position of your hands. When we find our neutral, we lengthen through the tailbone. You can feel how your fingers and your thumbs are more level and you have that space in your low back. So that's that neutral spine. Everything feels pretty level. Try it again. Going to 12 o'clock, thumbs drop, pubic bone lifts, back flattens, ribs press into the mat. And then you find your neutral by lengthening the tailbone. And you feel how everything's pretty level. So now what we're going to try is imagining that we're going to seesaw the right hand down by dropping through the right side and then coming back up. And then left side down. So from right to left, if we were a seesaw, we would just be going down and back up. This is often a harder motion within this pelvic clock, but moving the seesaw from 3 and 9 o'clock of the clock is helping to activate that side body a little more. You might feel your obliques. Now let's try coming back to neutral, and then as you imprint, find that 12 o'clock position, and then imagine kind of rolling over to 9 o'clock, and then down to 6 and over to 3. So you're getting the sense that you can rotate around the outer borders of a clock, and ideally making it as smooth as you can. So as we start to learn this exercise, you're going to notice some stiffness, and you're going to notice there's a different quadrant or motion that's definitely harder to do than the other. That's so normal, and that's okay. That's why we want to learn this and practice this. So now we're going to come back to neutral and just try the other direction. So imprint, find that 12 o'clock position, drop over to the other side, 9 o'clock, down to 6, over to 3, and then back to 12. See if this side feels easier. Just trying to find that nice smooth motion around the perimeter of that imaginary clock. And then come back to center. And then when you're in center, this is a different version of the clock that I like to help me open up and release some of that stiffness before we try the circle again. So now we can imagine like a 5 o'clock and let's say like a 10 or 11 o'clock. So this diagonal here. So imagine that as you imprint, you're imprinting towards that shoulder. So it's going towards the angle, 10 o'clock, and then down to 5 o'clock. So working through a diagonal oftentimes feels like an easier way to get some range of motion. Imprinting still, now that you know how to imprint and flatten the ribs and the back into the mat, and then release down towards the hip joint, almost getting a deeper crease through that hip joint. Come back to neutral. Let's try the other diagonal. So now we'll go towards that like 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock. Or sorry, 7 o'clock. So let's imprint towards that right shoulder and then release. Imprint and release. Imprint and release. Imprint and release back to neutral. So just like we started, let's start with an imprint and then find our neutral. Lengthen through your tailbone. Everything's level. Flatten the ribs, flatten the back. Feel that imprint, and you might notice that you've released some stiffness already. Come back to an imprint, and then roll towards that 9 o'clock, down to 6, over to 3, and around the clock you go. See how it feels now. After just learning this, you might have already improved. Come back to neutral, and then go the other direction. Imprint, rolling towards the other side. Noticing what your range of motion is. Are you able to do more? Is there less pain? And then finish up and come back to neutral. And go ahead and relax.